We are 2 days removed from the game. It's the last time for you to get your questions in about the Wolverines as the regular season winds down. One more game, Ohio State. It's for it all. We're going to get to all of your questions, or at least a lot of your questions, on this episode of the Michigan Mailbag on Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thanksgiving Day. Yes, we are doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group, not meeting group. We're not a meeting group. And I am here recording a mailbag for you while my beloved Detroit Lions are currently starting the second half of the game. Because that's how much I love y'all now, as we have been doing lately, because we get just way too many questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. We will get to those first who ask questions on a regular basis, and whatever else we can get in, we will. So let's just get right to it, starting with our leaders and best. James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Do you think the Michigan should recruit kids who say NIL is the most important factor? So how many of those recruits would you go for? I think you absolutely should. I understand that that's probably feels antithetical to some of the culture fit stuff. But I think that you absolutely should, but you should also feel out, like, is this the type of kid that's going to be a good teammate? Is he going to fit into the culture and all of that stuff? Because let's just face it, things have changed in college football, and a lot of the five-star types are going to be NIL plays. So I think that there has to be more to it. They have to love football. They have to be good teammates. They have to be coachable, even though, like, some of these guys are going to be making more money than a lot of the coaches on the team, right? Like, this is just kind of where we're at. I think it's really important, though, that that you don't rule yourself out because you aren't willing to pay, right? And that's kind of what the difference has been with Bryce Underwood and some of these others that they're now going after. Weirdly, I'm just going to move on that fast. Normally, I take like 6 minutes to answer James's question to kick this off. Josh Barajadicki, do you get the vibe that this week feels like a bit of a free roll for Michigan this week? There's a lot of positive vibes around recruiting. Everyone is looking forward to next season already. And most have written off OSU as a loss already. Seems like no pressure on Michigan at all. I kind of do, right? Like this is a different thing, right? Because before there was like a lot of pressure and Michigan rose to the occasion the last 3 years and Ohio State didn't. I think there's going to be an insane amount of pressure on Ohio State to do some, to do things. And it's going to be absolutely incumbent upon Michigan in the early going to basically say, like, we're here and we're not rolling over. And just kind of sow a seed of doubt in Ohio State's mind, right? Because then, like, the pressure will continue to mount. I know some are new to the rivalry, like Will Howard. Caleb Downs knows what it's like to lose to Michigan from last year. And I think that it's kind of like an inverse of 2018, except for this still is at Columbus, right? Like, Michigan went into that game overconfident, talking to some people before the game, talking to some people after the game. It's like they came out saying, like, yeah, we just thought we were going to be able to waltz in and kind of do our thing. You can't kind of overcome psychology to some degree. And as much as Ohio State wants this, I think that if they're sitting there looking at the records, there might be some kind of like inner belief that, like, yeah, we should just be able to come in and do what we do and we should be good. And, like, that may or may not be the case. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, like, that's a possibility. And if you're Michigan, you hope that they're coming in with that, and that Michigan's coming in with this, like, listen, we've won the last 3. We're just going to do it again. This is our season, right? This is the bowl game. Like, I don't care about the actual bowl game. A lot of these guys probably aren't going to be playing in the actual bowl game. This is going to be the last appearance in the Michigan uniform for some of them. You hope that they go out and give it their all. My brother Metal Michael Wolf at MWolf21. Michigan needs how many points, rushing yards, turnovers, time of possession for a win in Columbus? I would feel comfortable points-wise if they could get above 31. I don't think that the game is necessarily going to go above that for either team. If Michigan can get to 31, then I think that it can probably hold them under 31. Maybe, I should say. Oregon had 38. Texas had 31. I believe, right? But I think they need it to look a little bit like the Indiana game, but paced out a little bit more than it was, right? Like, don't have a big, bad first half. Rushing yards obviously just need more. I would say 200 rushing yards would be in the vein, right? Like, Might need as little as 150. I'm not really sure. Turnovers, Michigan just has to win the turnover battle, and it needs to, I would say they just have to have no turnovers. If neither team turns it over, it's going to depend on a lot of other stuff, but I think that there's a much more solid chance if Michigan wins the turnover battle one way or another. Now, if it's like Michigan loses 3 and Ohio State loses 4, then, I probably would pick Ohio State. But they still just need to win it. I don't really have a number there. Time of possession, Michigan just has to, I think, win time of possession, something like 35-25, I think would be the ideal. I think they can get away with, even just being 31-29. Jimmy Whitner 1. What positions would you like Michigan to finish the class with? More interior tackles, another couple defensive backs. I know that they're trending for Jordan Young, who's currently committed to Clemson. I'd love to see them take some swings with some of these guys and, maybe surprise people and get them like a DJ Pickett or something like that. Obviously, wide receivers is the biggest part. Like that's where they need the most. And obviously offensive line, because they're trying to get Ty Haywood. Do you think the women's basketball team will be ranked if they still only have one loss at the end of the week? I couldn't tell you. I am not paying attention at this point. I'm not even really paying attention to men's basketball because we're just kind of inundated. I'm one man with like 2 jobs, and then those 2 jobs, I do multiple jobs. So it's kind of hard for me to keep track of everything there. I don't even know if men's basketball will be ranked after this week. I think they probably will be, but we'll see. Number 3, what are your top 5 Thanksgiving dishes in order? Probably dark meat, turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, and then that's probably it. I don't think I have a 5th. I think it's that. And 4, tell Zuri I said what's up. Zuri! Jimmy Whitner says what's up, and I think she's just gonna lay on the couch. I think she's being like lazy crazy. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Do you see any of the Big 4 juniors coming back? Oh, nope, here comes Zuri. It wouldn't surprise me because if NIL is this and Champion Circle can get some stuff done, I think that there's a possibility that one of them might say you know what, I'm going to give it another year. But I think it would only be one. And I don't think it's going to be Will Johnson. Maybe Will Johnson's I just don't feel like my career here is complete given that my last home game was against USC. Think about that. Will Johnson hasn't taken the field in a Michigan home uniform since week 4. But I think most will go, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if one of them's lured back with the 1 more year fund, right? If Blake Corum can be lured back, and I know he had the injury, but that's kind of the same thing with Will Johnson, but he's also still projected to be the top corner off the board. So I wouldn't be surprised. All right, Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore, finishing us out in segment 1. Please rank Thanksgiving sides, mine or below. Stuffing with ground sausage, mashed potatoes, corn casserole. I've never had corn casserole at Thanksgiving. Dinner roll. Oh, I forgot about the dinner roll. My aunt makes this incredible butter. She better have made it today. After meal coffee. I don't always have that. And he says, screw pie, happy Thanksgiving. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you as well, Spencer, and all of you out there. And I would go stuffing with or without ground sausage. And I kind of just gave it, but it's stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, and it all depends on the green. It's not all green bean casseroles are good. Okay. I've had some bad ones, but a good green bean casserole, then mashed potatoes, then a dinner roll with copious amounts of butter. And I don't have a 5th because that's just all I have. I don't really add anything else to that. All right, we're going to move on. We've got plenty more coming up with the Victors Valiant. We will get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Thanksgiving Day. Getting this. I was going to wait till after the Lions game. I just kind of felt like let's just knock this out. As much as I want to watch the Lions, I have faith that they'll handle it. I don't need to watch the whole game against the Bears. I hate the Bears. But still, Jim in the North starting out the Victor's Valiant. Love the Underwood signing, but are you worried given the coaching issues this year that we won't be able to develop him? No, because I think that they've given him some assurances that things are going to change in terms of staffing. And when I say I think, I'm going to wink at you there. We'll get to some of the names and stuff, but I'm not going to give you all the names. I'm just not going to. Well, maybe I'll give you the other name that I had heard. I guess what's the point in not sharing that? But I think that they'll make some changes. They'll make the requisite changes, right? Like, I just don't think they're just going to roll in with the same thing. They might. I mean, it's possible. I just don't think it's probable. I also asked you, we need a new O-line coach. I'm not really in the line of calling for people to go outside the fact that I've been pretty vocal about Kirk Campbell. I'm not saying Kirk Campbell, you need to leave the staff. I'm just saying you can't be the OC. I would say the offensive line just has to be a lot better, and the coaching has concerned me. That's all I'll say about that. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. Is Bryce Underwood the QB fine? Well, I'm assuming you mean will Bryce Underwood finally break Navarre's season record, and in what year? I don't think it would be next year because I don't know that he'll start straight away. I'll go in 2026. I think he will. I think he absolutely will. Like, if he doesn't, then it's a dereliction of duty on Michigan's part, right? Like, I could kind of get like why you didn't with JJ McCarthy because you had Blake Corum. I mean, they're going to have good running backs, but like they just need to be way more pass heavy and way more throwing downfield. And I mean, frankly, looking a little bit more like Ohio State in a lot of ways, while still maintaining the tenets that make Michigan good, right? Like, that's just what they have to be, I think. So I'm going to go in 2026 that he will break the 3,331 yards passing. Plus, there's more games, right? Like, it's a lot easier to do it. You know, you're not just playing 12 games. Chubbs GB at Talk with Chubbs. What's the one thing you feel absolutely have to happen in order for Michigan to get the upset? First is no turnovers, but really more so just run the ball. And when I say run the ball, I should add run the ball effectively, because it's like, oh yeah, they ran the ball 40 times, but they averaged like 2 yards per carry. That doesn't really help, right? So run the ball effectively is the most important thing. Keeping the ball away from Ohio State, managing the game. Michigan's path is likely relies more heavily on being able to run the ball effectively. So that would be it. Edwin Simmons at Edwin rather. Does Michigan win the rushing yards? The team that wins normally wins the game. Well, that's been the case since 2001. In 2000, Michigan won despite not winning the rushing battle. I would say that that's probably accurate, unless suddenly like the passing game is so unlocked that Michigan becomes like this quick strike team and can move the ball down the field, and then the defense doesn't get tired and is able to, as Ohio State tries to run, like there is a path, right? But I don't think it's likely that suddenly Michigan's offense, with the quarterback, offensive line, and wide receivers that they have, that suddenly their offense is going to resemble that of 2021 Ohio State. But like, I think that there's a path. Not settling for field goals, getting touchdowns. There's things like that matter a lot too. Clark at Blue for Life 8. Do you expect any of the juniors with the first or second round draft grade to stay, or do you think they're all headed to the draft? Obviously, I answered that partially, but you've added second round. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, all of the ones that we were talking about, and I realize I think Josiah is a senior. Derek Moore, I think, would be he could find himself a second round type guy, and I think that he is probably more likely to stay. But we'll see. I think that the 1 more year fund will find a way to keep one massive name. I don't have a name for you. I'm just speculating, but I think that'll happen. Brett Byer at Brett Byer 6. Colston Loveland and Will Johnson status. And it seems like all these recruiting dominoes we were told were going to fall are not happening, at least not yet. Any word on Meadows or any of those 5-star D linemen Michigan's trying to flip? With Colston and Will, I feel more confident about Colston than I do Will. We'll see with Will. I think he'll try to give it a go. I've heard kind of conflicting things, but none of them are definitive. Let me put it that way. As far as the dominoes, I think that some of them will just fall later than I think people are expecting. Michigan may be trying to get guys to hold off until signing day for the sake of my month. I would kind of like some of them to drop here. I think you're going to see at least one commit in the next couple days for sure. Meadows, I wrote this on the Fort early in the week. I think it was like Monday. I said I wasn't that confident. Like my confidence was waning in Meadows. Then I kind of, after talking to my source again, said something like, waning doesn't mean he doesn't commit. Last I talked to him, they sounded positive, but still kind of exasperated about the situation. But now you're seeing Meadows getting some Alabama crystal balls. Michigan's still going to fight, but at the same time, I kind of have been long on if he doesn't flip right away. Here's the thing: the plan is that Dotson, Underwood, and Meadows were all going to kind of flip at the same time. It just didn't work out that way, So I mean, when I say at the same time, it wasn't surprising me that Bryce flipped the day after Elijah, because I was told on Sunday that it was going to be like they're all flipping, and Ty Haywood. But Ty Haywood was going to require some more work. And I don't know. No one knows if he's made that midweek visit or not. So I just think that some of those dominoes are going to fall. It's just going to take some time. And you keep in mind, Michigan is trying to make a splash, but as long as they can get the commitment in-house, it doesn't necessarily have to be public, right? It's kind of fine at this point that it isn't, because then it doesn't give as much time for the other team to flip, I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9. Does anyone know what Mike Hart is doing? I haven't heard anything, to be honest, so I'm not going to speculate. Does it bother you that Michigan fans seem to be the ones who say some of the things that they say? Seems like EJ gets it bad too. I thought we were all rooting for the same team. It is kind of weird, and it's almost like, I mean, this is just kind of human nature sometimes. I've been spending a lot of time reading the Pauline letters in the New Testament, and a lot, all of those are like exhortations of just kind of, hey, y'all, you need to like stop arguing and just love one another, and like stop it with this, like, all these different things that you're doing. So, I mean, it's like, not even when you believe the same thing or you love the same thing, not everyone's always pulling in the same direction. It does bother me often, which is why we haven't had many like Michigan fans settle down episodes as we once had. But like 2019, 2020, some of those years, it was like constant. Even 2021 in the early going. But I mean, it still happens. There's reasons that, it's like even like all the Bryce Underwood stuff, and trying to get people to calm down, trying to get people to understand, like just let it play out, all of that stuff, instead of just like, taking everything to social media and saying these things. And then I was getting word from people close to Bryce that he's seeing that and what all, it's just like, you just got to kind of understand that the recruits, players, they see these things. I've told you before, I used to get texts from a Michigan player, former Michigan player, while he was a current player, and he'd text me after games where like they'd win, but things didn't look pretty, and he'd just be like, what is up with these Michigan fans? Why are they so mad? This is so frustrating. I hate this fan base. So, it just is what it is. What happened with Jair? Did he get in trouble? He clearly did. He and Josiah, considering they were healthy scratches for 3/4 of the game, and Sharon Moore just said, we'll handle that in-house. And they changed their numbers too, so it's pretty evident that there's some kind of trouble. No one seems to know what it is. So we just kind of leave it at that. Brad G at Brad Go Blue 85. Now that it's been some time, can you give any insight as to why Eric All left? I can. And that's not going to be fun for some to hear. So I'll go ahead and tell you some of the Eric All story, at least from the side of Eric All. So Eric All takes the field for the season opener in 2022. And he like gets into his stance, and he's like recognizing that he can't feel like his extremities, right? So he tries to see the team doctors, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. So he gets a second opinion. And they're like, oh, yeah, you need surgery. There's like this and this. But because there was an odds between the team doctors and the second opinion he got, that didn't make the Michigan contingent, i.e. Jim Harbaugh, very happy. So he decided to do the surgery, and his intent was to do the surgery and come back as soon as he could and still continue to play for Michigan. But Harbaugh kind of froze him out from, again, this is one side of the story, and kind of called him out in front of the team. And from there, it just kind of felt like he wasn't wanted. He went from being a favored son to unwanted. And so they had to make the best decision for himself. That's the story. Lonnie Dub at Lonnie Dub, finishing out segment 2 with Coach Moore and NIL. Do you think the NCAA and SEC having buyer's remorse showing Harbaugh out of college, maybe even a few Big Ten schools as well. I don't know that they're thinking about it that way, but 100% they've got to be, because this wasn't going to happen with Jim Harbaugh. This was just going to be like, all right, we got Jaden Davis. That's good to go. And then, now we got Carter Smith. Okay, we're good to go. Harbaugh was very happy, I've been told, with where the roster stood entering this year. And kind of called off the dogs early before the bowl game to get some of the high-end guys that they could have gotten in the transfer portal who supposedly were interested. So, I think that they're probably kind of fine with it in some ways right now because Michigan's 6-5, but I think that they might have that buyer's remorse in 1 to 2 years, especially if like Bryce Underwood turns out to be everything we think he can be. All right, we're going to continue on. Lightning round. Got way too many questions, not enough time to get to them. We'll do them as fast as we can so I can answer as much as I can. We'll do that here in just a moment. All right, we got less than 9 minutes. That's how long the camera will last because it's got a 30-minute mark when I use this particular camera. N. Jankowski at N. Jankowski81. What's up with the 90-day answer to the NCAA? Do they have an extension? They do have an extension. Is all that stuff private and they don't announce it if an extension has happened? It's kind of come out. They didn't announce it. Or have they sent the reply to the NCAA? We don't know because it's not public what's going on. It's just NCAA, I believe, was trying to add some context late coming out of the documentary. Nothing like not adding like accusations, just context. And then that happened kind of like was finalized kind of late. So Michigan requested an extension and they were granted the extension. That's at least what I was told. I can't tell you the strong veracity of that in the same way that I have about a lot of the other things. Okay. So that's just kind of what I've heard. And part of that is intel, but even the person giving me intel was kind of like, I don't exactly have all the answers there either. So, Danny Rebraca at Danny Reb 8. What's Loveland's status? And is it any chance that Will Johnson plays? I'm just giving you a shout out because we've answered that. Jacob Phillips at Jake_Phillips_8. Why are Michigan fans never happy? There's always something we complain about. Absolutely true. I think that there were a lot less complaining when JJ McCarthy and Blake Corum were on the roster. And it was nice to see. But it's Michigan fans are always never happy unless they're unhappy. That's just kind of the nature of this particular fan base. Klob711 at Klob711. What are your expectations as far as Michigan's record next year if they indeed can sign some of those pending recruits and come in with a top 5 recruiting class? Thanks for all you do and happy Thanksgiving. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it depends a little bit more on the transfer portal than it does the recruiting class, right? Because you see it even this year. There's like 5 like freshmen that are like contributors, right? Like you don't want to have a young class. I think it's going to be more about the transfer portal. They can get like 10 guys in the transfer portal that are impact players and make the requisite coaching changes. I think that they could be in contention for the Big Ten. And I know that's the intention and the plan. Caden Script at Caden Script, who are the top targets in 2025 right now after some new players were offered. I would say Ty Haywood, Isaiah Gibson, Travis Moten. I know I'm forgetting some. Obviously, Derek Meadows, Quincy Porter. There, I was also told by some people that like there's just gonna be names that just aren't gonna come out. So I might find some of those later. Like they're likely talking to some guys that no one in basically the world outside of Michigan and the people they're talking to know. So, but that's it. I think Jakeem Stewart too, but like it doesn't look like he's looks like he's trending to USC. DJ Pickett, I can add that to that, but that feels like a long shot. Great Bambino X at Colossus O'Cloud X. Any Biff Poggi news? Would love to see Sharon bring him on in the same capacity. Jim did, associate HC or some kind of advisor to himself. I was told by a source that that's going to get done. So we'll see. Again, that source was like 3 people removed from that situation, but I was told that that was going to get done. Tmart at Tmart_116. Update on recruiting options at wide receiver, assuming Meadows is going to Bama, Quincy Porter, portal guys, etc. Portal guys for sure. Quincy Porter for sure. Don't know how receptive he is. Wouldn't be surprised if they're going after Jerome Miles again, who's committed to USC. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, you're sticking with the 3. Scott at I've been slimed 84. What do you hear about Michigan's response to the NCAA, which they had to file this week? I've already addressed that. Brian Blyle at Brian Blyle CLT. Is Jaden Davis that bad he couldn't play at all this year? Do you see him transferring now? Real curious. He just needs some mechanical work that hasn't been able to kind of like get fixed. Plus, I think the plan is usually not to play a freshman. he was just always going to kind of be a little bit of a project. Does he transfer? It's possible with Bryce Underwood coming in, but I don't know, right? Like he might want to stick it out and compete, might do that through the spring, I would venture, and then see kind of what happens from there. That would just be a guess. That's a speculation. Hitch at Hitch Not Mitch. What's your realistic expectation prediction for next season now that we landed Bryce Underwood? As far as season, it kind of depends on who they get in the transfer portal. I think Bryce will end up playing maybe a little bit more than a JJ 2021 role, but I do think that he eventually will start. Like it might be week 5, might be week 6, something like that. But I think that I would venture to say 10-2 is a huge improvement, right? Like they still got to get some stuff going, and they're going to lose some pieces too. Tyler Stiff at T-Stiff70, potential OC targets. I know people are already talking about Dan Mullen. I'm going to add that second name now that I had heard. Byron Leftwich was the name that I heard was also but was also pitched to Bryce. But I don't think it's limited to that, right? I think this is like, hey, we're going to go after guys like Dan Mullen and Byron Leftwich. Still don't know how the Dan Mullen stuff got out, man. I wanted to keep that secret as long as I could. And it got out like 2 days later, but I'm adding the second name I heard to that right now. Chief Chuggers, why are you doing a podcast on Thanksgiving? Take the day off, my man. We'll take the day off after Ohio State week. No, not really. After the bowl game. There we go. I'll take the day off then. Nate Stum 32. Do you have any insight on Rod Moore going pro returning next season? I don't. I would expect him to return though. Just my own hunch. Hutch at Hutch of the Dead. Your feelings and input on the most likely last minute flips to Michigan before signing day. I think the most likely would be would be as far as flips, Jordan Young and Ty Haywood. I think Isaiah Gibson is maybe no one's really getting a lot of intel out of that. I wouldn't be surprised, as weird as that might seem. Georgia kid committed to Georgia. But I think those are the most likely. Maybe one of the wide receivers. I'm feeling less and less, and it's not my own intel beyond what I've already told you. I'm feeling feel like it's less likely that Meadows comes in. That said, Meadows, as people accurately said on one of the message boards, he's a little bit more of a project. That's how Michigan sees him as well, from my conversations with people inside the program. Like, he's not like a plug and play, like all of a sudden you've got this crazy Ryan Williams style receiver. Okay. Let's see, Josh Houghton or Houghton at Josh Y Houghton, whatever, 86. Okay. If we somehow pull off the upset, how fast does Day start collecting food stamps, and how far outside city limits would be considered a safe zone from Columbus tearing itself apart from the inside? The whole state of Ohio would be imploding, and I think Ryan Day would have one option to keep his job, and that's to win a national championship. And it would all depend on how they got beat, if they even got to stay in. Again, I'm not counting on that. So don't take me out of context, Ohio State fans. Mike Matthews at Michigan Mike 7, who have been your 3 favorite coaches or players you have gotten to know in your time spent covering Michigan football. Donovan Edwards, certainly. I mean, everyone knows that because he's just my brother. It would probably have to be almost all players, but I mean, we can also count Connor Stallions on that. He's literally like a great friend now. And let me think. Coaches, I mean, there's just so many. Partridge was just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Jay Harbaugh was incredible. Jordan Lewis was incredible. JJ, I know everyone loves Blake. I didn't have a great, and when I say great, I didn't have a great, I wasn't close to Blake Corum. I was pretty close to JJ. I mean, he was just awesome. I can't limit it to that number. So there that is. Mr. Harris Plutocrat at Mr_H_Plutocrat. How will Michigan try to fix its OL shortcomings for next year? Also, is Tom Brady to help a gimmick or actually helpful? I don't think Tom Brady's help is much different necessarily than it's been for JJ. Right? Or even Cade. And I think it's probably Brady brand endorsement. I know that they've got sold to someone or whatever, but I'm sure it's something kind of like that. And I'm available to you, but he was available to JJ as well and Cade. So how will they try to fix the offensive line? I think probably transfers. I wouldn't surprise me if there's some shuffling and there's a new coach there. I don't know. John Fine at John Fine 2. What excuse does Ohio State have to use this year? Flu, cold, Connor, possible alien invasion. I mean, they'll come up with something, probably the refs or something. But again, I'm not counting on it. I think there's a path. I'm not counting on it. We'll see. Rowdy at Rowdy 3333. We getting Mullen as OC? I mean, it's possible. I would maybe even say probable. I'll stay with possible. All right, actually, we're at 29:54. That's it. That's all the time we got. Thanks for watching. Happy Thanksgiving. Talk to you later. Peace.